Welcome back to another episode of Dubai Works Business Podcast. Today we're talking all things media and a deep dive into streaming with a very well-known brand in the region. It's powered by Zbooni. The Zbooni app gives businesses free tools to start and grow online, accept payments, build e-store, and create mobile invoices in minutes. The interview is brought to you by Zbooni. The guests and stories told are their own. So, Starzplay is a subscription video on demand service that streams Hollywood and Arabic movies, TV shows, documentaries, kids' entertainment, and many more things coming to the platform. They also have original content to 20 countries across MENA and Pakistan. The company has seen a phenomenal year-on-year growth since launch in 2015, reaching over 1 million paying subscribers and installed on more than 6 million devices. Wow. The co-founder and CCO, Danny Bates, has joined us to talk about the amazing growth that Starzplay has had. He has personally more than 20 years experience to his role as CCO at Starzplay Arabia, having spent the past 2 decades working in the EMEA regional's satellite, pay TV, and energy sectors. Good morning, Danny.
Morning. Hi. Hi.
Thanks for joining. So you're working remotely and you're in the UK at the moment?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Enjoying the cold weather in the UK rather than the warm weather back in Dubai right now.
It's not a warm spring yet.
No, no, it certainly isn't.
Lots of rain probably. Well, thanks for joining. So to get kick started, can you tell us about how Stars Play started?
Yeah, sure. So, myself and my co-founder Maz, we actually spent around 10 years at OSN in the region. So we were part of the team that helped kind of grow OSN into one of the leading satellite providers in the region. And, in the later years, kind of there at OSN, we really started to see the shift across to streaming and the importance of this as a platform for delivery for customers. So when we were there, we really started, even though Netflix, for example, hadn't launched in the market, we really started to see a migration of customers across to Netflix, even back then, sort of 6-7 years ago. And we really saw the kind of opportunity in this market to bring something similar to customers across MENA. So, we kind of went through this journey together of many, many businesses that we kind of had ideas to start up and kind of shot them all down until this one came up as an idea. And we really thought it follows our background, kind of what we know in terms of an industry. And the opportunity is really sort of there for the taking in the region at that time. So, yeah, we were fortunate enough 6 years ago through some common friends to get introduced to a team of individuals who at that time also built up a company called HBO Nordic. So some of our co-founders, Karin, Khalid, Salim, our CTO at that time, we kind of came together as a founding team to launch Starzplay. And again, sort of when we were out there looking for funding, kind of sometimes you get a bit lucky, right? You kind of get to meet the right people at the right time. We were fortunate enough at that time to meet the Stars, which is one of the leading, or at that time was one of the leading US cable brands, who were more of a B2B company back then 6 years ago. Which were really looking to see how they could kind of get some B2C reach for customers and develop their customer facing offerings. So we were fortunate enough to bring Stars on as which is now Stars Lionsgate as a shareholder 6 years ago, and then kind of really get the funding to build up the business in the region.
Amazing. So the original, I think many people who are familiar with Stars Play now knows what it does and what it is with premium content and all these different opportunities for streaming. Back then, was that the playbook? Was that the business plan to do exactly as you've done in terms of the content offering and streaming?
Yeah, I think the original idea, honestly, was to kind of launch the streaming service, but launch it with like a box that could be in the customer's home, like some kind of set-top box, because we knew that's what the region was kind of used to through the satellite TV offerings. But I think sort of quite early on, we realized that the market was, really evolving very, very quickly. And customers had their own devices that they can use, whether that be smart TV, their tablet, Apple TV, these type of products. So I think early on we kind of pivoted from the original idea, which was a streaming service with a device, to realizing that actually, we could capitalize on the devices that customers had. But I would say from the original idea to where you kind of evolved to, you turn 20 different corners along the way. We kind of had some preconceptions about content. I think early on, we thought that movie content would really be the driver of a service like this. And I think, quite soon after launching, we really realized that the core backbone of a service like this is series content. So we made a pivot that way quite early on to still acquire movies, but to have a bigger focus on series content for streamers. I think early on as well, we kind of realized that just having credit card as a method of payment in this region wouldn't give us that kind of payment ubiquity to give customers access to the service. So very early on as well, we kind of built our telecom relationships with partners all across the region, moved into carrier billing so that customers could pay for us using their mobile telephone bill. And that also helped us grow. So I think, there's been a multitude of kind of learnings along the way, tweaks in the strategy along the way to actually be able to kind of realize the growth that we've seen today.
Amazed on two things that I'd love to delve into a bit more that has been a key driver in your growth and your differentiator in terms of partnerships and differentiated content as well. But going back to the sort of the start in terms of, being knowing the industry, but then having to do a startup and have the things that go with startup. You alluded to fundraising, but also there's usually a tech build and things like that. How did you
Yeah.
kind of navigate that when your background was more in a sort of an established sort of business?
Yeah, I think, although kind of we'd been at OSN and maybe now it feels established, I think for us during kind of our time there, it kind of had a bit of a startup feel to it anyway.
Mm.
We went through a big change in strategy at OSN in terms of content and distribution. We went through that kind of first evolutions at OSN of an OTT product to deliver catch up to the satellite service. So we kind of been through some of that development. So if you like, we had some preparations for what was to come, but not enough, I would say. I'd say there was there's a lot that you find early on. So I think for us, a key part for us was building our platform kind of early on, as you kind of mentioned. It was a big focus of the team, and I think what we tried to do, kind of seeing what had happened around the world and seeing some of the challenges that people have met, we looked to build our own platform early on, which made things more difficult, if you like, at the start, because you're building something from scratch that doesn't exist. You're trying to make all of those different components, from video to the customer facing application, from billing and everything work. So it made it quite sort of challenging at the start. But I think over the longer term, kind of that decision has paid off, because we have a platform now today that's ours, that we know how to develop it. It's our own IP. So I think painful at the start, but glad we kind of made the decision in terms of where we sit today. That we now have this platform and have developed this and have this asset, if you like, for the business. But I think it's the big, beyond sort of getting the platform launched, I think one of the biggest challenges you face as a startup early on is kind of, where do you invest your time and what decisions do you make, so it's always, you only have so much resource, you have so much funding. So I think the big kind of challenge for us in the early days was, what feature do we invest in? What partner do we invest in? How do we build up the business to hopefully make the right decisions to support our longer term growth? So, you're constantly asking yourself that question: are we doing the right thing? Is this the thing that we should be doing? And trying to, get behind the decisions that you make, and hopefully they, support the growth that you're looking for in the business.
Interesting. Also, in terms of the startup, we'll talk about the brand and getting that out there. But many people will resonate with the choice you made about building your own platform. and is that to do with sort of having control and flexibility? And obviously, it can help margins down the line, but uh, does it also kind of um, does it give you a point of difference with others who have potentially licensed and outsourced their technology? And do you have to decide as you know do you have to decide if you're a media company and a tech company? And is that what you and your co-founders figured out at the start, or did you think you were hybrid at the start?
Well, I think, we really kind of evolved what we thought we were over time, to be honest. I think at the first, as we went into this, we kind of thought we were a pay TV company. We came a little bit with that legacy of being in a pay TV company and kind of thought the business was similar. But I think really early on, we learned some sort of, clear lessons that that's not what we are. We're actually, yes, content is our product ultimately, and that's what people watch. But actually, I think as much as that, we realized early on that we were two other things. One is a tech company, as you say, we needed to deliver great technology to deliver our products to customers. I think the other thing we kind of realized we were very early on and needed to change our model for is an e-commerce company as well. When we look at our distribution is all online. So the ability to acquire customers online, the ability to understand the data of the acquisition channels, be able to attribute costs, be able to attribute things like lifetime value to the customers that we're bringing on, and which channels performing for us and which channels not. That was really kind of sort of a big aha moment for us early on, and I think it's something that we kind of adjusted as well to bring some of that skill into the team. I think from our background, we kind of had the ability to build the tech. We had the ability to build sort of that media side of the business. And I think what we really tried to add early on was people with that e-commerce experience. We brought in a guy who was a big part of our sort of first few years of growth that came from a background of companies like booking.com. So he'd really had that e-commerce experience, that online acquisition experience. And I think that made a, really big difference to the business early on. And then we kind of evolved from there. And I think also looking at marketing today, it's kind of very, very different. It's numbers, it's analytics, it's not a lot down to gut feeling these days. We run, maybe 20 different creatives at the start of the month, see which one performs, get behind that creative, So it's very much building that analytical capability has been really, really key in the company as well.
Fascinating. So many different things. It makes it sound even more complicated to be e-commerce companies as well. But Danny, so the opportunity when we see statistics on, say, in this space in cord cutting, as they term it in the US, or a shift to streaming and the different platforms and devices. What do you think are the key reasons why Starzplay kind of cut through and is still growing strong now, or even thriving kind of 6 years in? And there were other kind of players at the time that didn't necessarily make it, and then also alluding at the role that sort of setting up in Dubai played in that sort of part of the success.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the reason kind of the industry worked in this region, I think was for a couple of reasons, and I'll go maybe into why we kind of succeeded within that as well. But I think the region has always had, a really strong demand for content, and also had a really, strong demand for Hollywood content as well. But and this is kind of where we saw the opportunity in the market as well. But kind of OSN and the Orbits of the world, or Showtimes back in the day, had always brought Hollywood content to the region at a really high premium to customers. So, some of our pricing back at that time was, we had packages at $80 a month, $109 a month, this type of pricing. So I think being able to bring customers a service back then that, number one, was really well priced. And so they, didn't feel that same level of having to, have that commitment, $100 a month. It was also packaged flexibly as well, rather than signing up for a 12-month contract, you had a free trial, you could try the product, you were not tied to a contract, you could cancel any time. So I think actually making the product and truly like an entertainment product rather than making people have to come in and make big commitments financially and make big commitments in terms of the period they spent with us really helped early on establish the package. And then I think, you know, when I look at back when we first launched sort of 6 years ago, I think back then we were really trying to establish a category that didn't exist. You know, our job was a lot harder 6 years ago, trying to convince people that online TV was a way to consume your products. You know, we almost had to educate what the category was back then. And then, funnily enough, you know, things like, excuse me, sorry, Netflix coming into the market, funnily enough, actually helped us because it brought a lot of credibility to our category. It brought a lot of understanding to our category to consumers across the region. And then we were able to just compete on things like our product offering, our price, our billing, and also the, you know, the customization of our content library to be very relevant to the region.
Yeah, it's a fascinating insight to treat competition like that in a new burgeoning sector where the sector needs to be proving itself out, and then the pie overall grows. Can you talk a little bit about the opportunity that you see today in streaming and the current market size? Or, you know, we're in the middle of Ramadan, and typically in the past, the numbers around Ramadan and Pan Arab TV are really high numbers, even compared to the US market. Is do and do you see a kind of do you see that as still a huge opportunity in the space, in the streaming space where Starzplay is?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's happened over you know, the past sort of 2 or 3 years as streaming is become more established in the region as a way to watch TV, you know, and ultimately at the end of the day, it's just another distribution method. You know, we talk about SVOD and all of these things, but really it's just a more effective distribution method of the product. So I think, you know, what we've seen in the last couple of years is things like smart TVs, whereas maybe 4 or 5 years ago, they were a bit of a gimmick, you know, that were put out by manufacturers, they were seen as. Whereas today, something like a smart TV is really seen as a way to consume content. And we've seen in our own numbers the kind of use of smart TVs really explode over the last 2 or 3 years as customers become kind of more aware of this category and start to use it more. But that said, I still feel like we are kind of really, fortunately in this region, we're still quite early on in the journey. You know, although we've seen sort of really solid growth of the business, I think the category is still being educated. It's still growing, you know, the breadth, if you like, of people who have that awareness and actually, you know, start to trust these services. Mm. So personally, you know, I'm really excited about what's to come from MENA. I still don't think we've kind of hit that tipping point of where the products are really sort of onboarded by customers, if you like, or consumed by customers. I think that time is still to come.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think you touched on e-commerce, and you know, obviously there's payment gateways, there's people's appetite, ability uh, to make online transactions, and then there's also appetite to pay for content over the top or online. And one of the smartest things that I'm always so impressed with Starzplay is your ability to do partnerships and strategic partnerships. You know, it might be with a telco in North Africa, or just last night I saw that you've partnered with Sony TV to give all people who buy that smart TV a subscription to Starzplay. And that, you know, we see all the big companies here now have partnerships, people across sectors, but from where I'm sitting, it seems that Starzplay are the best at that, not just in streaming, but in across all the different sectors. How have you gone strategically about that? How do you view partnerships as a way to sort of get to customers?
You know, I think kind of for us, very early on, you know, we have a certain budget as a company, right? You know, we have a certain marketing budget and a certain reach that can gain us. And I think very early on, we were kind of aware that if we really wanted to succeed in the region, you know, one of the best ways that we can build trust in our brand, build trust in our product is actually to work with, you know, major established partners across the region. So I think for us, from the very sort of start of the business, that kind of need to partner, that want to partner, that want to support some of the kind of businesses that we see out there was very much sort of part of our business ethos, you know. And I think also um, we approach that in a very different way, as you say, to maybe other companies in the region. You know, we really truly understood how we could both offer each other value. You know, whether it be a telco where, you know, for them, they really want to bring content to their customers and utilize their data networks. For us, we really want to have access to those customers and give them the ability to watch our product. So I think very early on, we kind of worked well to, number one, understand the sort of the dual benefit each of us could receive from working together, and then really focused on making sure that when we worked with a partner, they got full value of our service, they got full value of our product, and we were really kind of focused on supporting that. And I think that also helped us being a local company as well. You know, when you're kind of talking to a local partner from an office in Amsterdam, it's very different from being a team that, you know, flies all over the region, spends time face to face with your partners, and is really focused on making decisions to support them. You know, one of the great things I feel about our business is that, you know, we can make decisions at our office based in Dubai. We can do something with the brand, we can do something with an integration, and kind of, we don't need to refer back to an office in the US to kind of make that decision. We can kind of support our partners directly ourselves in terms of rollout. So I think that whole approach has been key to us. I think, you know, working with the, as you say, Sony TV is, you know, these are perfect kind of blends of relationship. You know, the guys at Sony really want to push their product, really want to push the 4K element of their product so people can get the best of their devices. And we kind of have that content to be able to share with subscribers. So it's it works very well as a match up together, you know.
Yeah, as you mentioned as well. Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes, you know, it's great to be able to have the relationship with the customer, but there are other companies like telcos who already have maybe that kind of billing relationship, so it
Yeah.
makes a perfect fit. And how did you approach? Sorry.
And they have that trust as well with the customer. You know, it's quite hard when you're an online streaming business 6 years ago. A lot of people kind of have that perception that you could be a pirate, right? So there's almost that perception, oh, is this another pirate website? So one of our challenges early on was kind of establishing that trust also with a customer, you know, establishing the fact that we are kind of a real brand. We are a brand from the region, and, you know, the way that we operate is kind of legally, you know, we're not there as a pirate company to steal your data. And I think when you partner with a partner like Etisalat, when you have the trust of an Etisalat or an STC, and they're willing to bring you in front of customers, I think that also really helps establish trust in your brand and who you are as a company as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's that sort of credibility piece. You mightn't necessarily have the sort of US media per se as the brand, but if you do it locally in the region, both in decision making and with strategic partnerships, you kind of make a match for those American companies. But Danny, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll just be back and we'll talk more about content.
Okay, perfect. Cool.
And we're back. So Danny was telling us all about the Starzplay, how it started, the strategic partnerships, and making a success in streaming in the region. You touched on as well, Danny, about the content that Starzplay offered. You know, the history of streaming, and in one version of the story is that, you know, say with Netflix, where it was DVD and then into streaming around 2007, and the big sort of rights holders mightn't necessarily have thought that this would take on. So maybe some of the content that they brought in was quite cheap at the start. I'm just wondering how you found it to starting in 2015 in the Middle East. Did you find that content was more expensive? Did you have to look at originals? How did you find kind of building up that database to provide kind of a good product for the customer?
I think for us, we were really fortunate to be one of the first companies to the SVOD market in the region. So I think when we look back to 2015, at that time, a lot of rights were actually open and available. So there was a combination of rights that were maybe where the digital rights hadn't been sold, and just the satellite rights had been sold at that time. And then there were also a lot of rights with the studios that were kind of available and nobody had taken up. So I think when I look back to 2015, we kind of launched at the right time to be able to have an access to build a really sort of strong library at that time, and we were fortunate to partner at that time with people like Disney, with Fox, with Universal, and some of these major studios to bring content onto the platform. And then I think, because we kind of established that, if you like, that bridgehead back then, and we were able to bring subscriber growth to the platform and actually kind of grow the platform, that's given us credibility with those partners, so that even when competition has come into the region, because we've been able to grow, because we've been able to put a product out there, we've been able to really well maintain those relationships across the years and kind of build up our library of content available to customers. So I think it's the timing for us was good. And then I think, the growth helped us maintain those relationships. But I think what's kind of important to the way we buy content as well is, we're not a global company. We're headquartered in Dubai. We're a MENA focused company. And I think even when we buy Hollywood content, we don't just buy everything and anything, we kind of learn from our data. We learn from the viewing habits of our customers in Saudi Arabia, in Morocco, in the UAE. We kind of see their preferences within categories. And as we buy our content over time, we're able to then, really refine our offering that we bring consumers, so that we bring something that we know have the right stars in them. They're the right kind of stories. They're the right kind of sectors to bring content consumption to our platform. So kind of to date, that's been our evolution, has really, been buying content from partners. But actually this year is kind of seeing a couple of big changes for us. I think this year we're moving into producing our first own originals to the company. We did a test original last year, a show called Baghdad Central, that worked really well on the platform. And so now in 2021 and 2022, we're kind of going to go more into the production of original Arabic content. We kind of found some really good stories that we think we can bring to consumers in the region. So that's something we're excited to do. So that's kind of one change to our strategy in 2021. And I think the second thing that we've done this year is also move into an aggregation strategy as well. So, when we look at it, there's so many different places that you need to go to maybe buy your content offering today from so many different providers. And kind of what we've tried to do is on one platform, on one application and one billing relationship, we're trying to bring additional products that customers can buy from us. So earlier this year, we launched Discovery's global product on the platform. So now, in addition to your Starzplay subscription, you can buy Discovery Plus products. Also, we launched UFC in combination with Abu Dhabi Media. So now, again, from the Starzplay platform, you can watch live fights. You can buy UFC products. Just at the start of Ramadan, we launched a product called Blue TV, which is Turkish content that, really resonates in the region, dubbed in Arabic. So in addition to, if you like, our originals and our core sort of service that we purchase for, we're now kind of moving across into aggregation to bring, more and more products to customers in one place, if you like.
It's fascinating. I think thanks for sharing. There's a lot of things there, and I think it kind of follows the sort of trends in the maturity of the streaming space in terms of originals and partnerships and things like that. Do you see Starzplay being more of a carrier for other streaming platforms and content creators, and how far could that go? Or do you think it'll still be that core sort of place where you either have licensed or original content and people sort of know really that it's Starzplay that's bringing this to them?
I think we hopefully see it as a combination of the two. I mean, our core product is always going to be at the heart of our business. Our Hollywood product, our Arabic content, our kids content, and that core Starzplay offering will always be at the heart of our business and what we're focused on. But I think what we're trying to sort of do now, in addition to that, is give consumers additional choices, and bring some major, global brands to our consumers, that they can choose to buy or not on our platform as well, to enrich their content experience, if you like.
Okay.
And really, some of the brands, and this is where kind of I think we have that bridgehead and that opportunity. The MENA region, if you're a company sat in the US or Europe, can seem a very challenging region. It's like 20 odd countries, different billing relationships across those countries, very different cultures in each of those countries. So actually being able to give a partner access to kind of our customer base and our distribution channels is something that, number one, is kind of really exciting for them to enter the market. And number two, we love, because we can bring our customers, really amazing product that they can add to their service.
Yeah.
So I think, really trying to create that all round kind of home entertainment offering for the consumer.
Yeah, and it's a sign of innovation as well that you're constantly sort of experimenting and bringing new products to people. It makes the platform more robust and more full in many ways.
Yeah.
Danny, we've almost gone 30 minutes without mentioning the pandemic. That we're almost a
Yeah.
year into now. How did Starzplay cope in the past 12 months? What did you do? How did you react? And what did you see in terms of streaming adoption as well?
I think, yeah, I mean, the pandemic, obviously, for the streaming business was, a time where I think a lot of people turned to content as something to do when they were in lockdown. So, for us, we really saw massive increases in our consumption, particularly back in kind of March, April, May 2020, where everyone was locked down and more people were watching services. So we saw huge lifts in the number of customers that were coming across to our platform. We saw huge lifts in the consumption of the content on our platform. So, fortunately, we were technically scaled for that. We're a cloud-based business. So as we saw more consumption, we were able to scale up and meet the demands of the extra customers coming onto the platform. I think our biggest challenge during that time, or our biggest thing that made us nervous back then, was that people were watching so much content, would they go through our whole library, and could we still access more content coming up in the future? What were producers going to do? And would there be new production of content that we could bring onto the platform? So I think, back at that time, those were kind of some of the concerns that we had. But I think the pandemic for the streaming business, really kind of changed or kind of accelerated, if you like, people's adoption of services. And, at that time, and even since then, we look at our paid traffic and we look at our organic traffic coming to our channels. And I think the biggest thing that changed for us during that time is the organic traffic, the people that were actually directly out there looking for Starzplay, really, really changed. And that change has almost stayed in our business. Even now, we're almost, or we are now sort of 12 months from the pandemic coming into place.
Interesting. And I've seen some shows lately are actually writing the pandemic into their scripts and things like that. So people are seeing it on both sides, both in terms of consumption and actually, or yeah, in terms of audience numbers and also narratives as well. So it's probably something that's going to live with us for some time.
Well, yeah, and I know we launched recently on our Discovery Plus service a documentary about sort of COVID-19 that Discovery produced. And
Yeah.
when I was looking at our content consumption recently, I mean, this show did unbelievably on the platform. It was one of the top 3 shows that we've seen from Discovery this year. So as you say, you kind of have that reality of it being there and almost now building into the content and the stories kind of around this last 12 months.
And yeah, and you kind of touched on it earlier as well, in terms of the stories that you're looking at. We're seeing a trend, and we'll talk about the wider industry in a second, but we're seeing a trend where stories are originating not necessarily in the traditional way. They might come from podcasts or they might come from tweets. I'm waiting for the Suez Canal documentary to come out. You know,
Yeah, true.
these things that kind of trend on social. Is that what Starzplay have your eye on in terms of content acquisition and originals? Like more sort of creative ways and social media ways of getting storylines.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the key thing with content is having those great scripts, you know. So for
Okay.
us, for sure, you know, if we can bring a story that has social relevance, and we can bring that story and tell that in a really strong way, that, you know, that's kind of the optimum, you know, series that you want to produce, you know. So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of really key for us, and you know, a big part of how we kind of reach customers is through social channels. So, you know, being able to create content that resonates on social media to, you know, bring customers to our platform is kind of very key to us as well.
Okay.
But I think the challenge is just really finding those great stories and those great scripts. You know, it really starts there in terms of content production. If you
Yeah.
can find that, you know, that script, then you can really evolve that into something that hopefully resonates with customers.
Interesting. So it is still about good quality storytelling. A word on the sort of, or a comment on the wider industry of the status play or the status quo. I was listening to an interview with Jason Kilar from Warner Media, and he was questioned a lot about releasing movies into theaters or, their HBO Max strategy and things like that. And, when the interviewer almost made it to sound like a bad thing that there are 85 million cable customers for Warner Media in the US, and that's dwindling, but that's obviously a sizable business. How do you view, Danny, the sort of the cable versus connected TV, and where we're going as a wider industry?
You know, I think really, honestly, when I look at kind of our market, I think there's kind of still room for both. And I think also, you know, some of the streamers are also working very closely with the cable companies as well, you know. So I think live TV and having that ability to either watch live sports events, either watch live news, you know, kids content is always going to play an important role in what consumers are looking for, you know. And I think just the SVOD services on top of that just give that consumer that extra choice. So I think in our region, maybe unlike the US, that I think that cord cutting is not quite as prevalent, you know. I mean, for us, for example, we partner with Etislat's eLife service, you know, which is kind of a cable service into the homes of customers across the UAE. So, you know, kind of we find that the services complement each other really well. You have eLife for your live TV, and then on top of that, accessible from the same box, you can enjoy Starsplay's SVOD content on the platform as well. So I think, you know, probably the region will evolve at a slightly, you know, different way to the US. I think in US, so many people were paying so much for TV services that kind of that cord cutting obviously made sense economically to the customer. You know, I don't think we see that kind of same reach in this region, to be honest.
Good, it's good insight, and again, it shows a good understanding of the region. Kind of segueing from that topic into technology and the trends in the region. One of the things we don't have here is a Roku type sort of box, like you mentioned, that maybe that was something that Starzplay would have done at the start, where they have content and then originals on top of that as well. And we're seeing the telcos kind of gradually move into having Android boxes and things like that. And how do you see technology from that point of view, but also from what the investments that Starzplay is making? We hear a lot about machine learning and content and serving things up for people that's of interest to them. What's your sort of view on technology at the moment for Starzplay?
Yeah, I think, you know, to answer the first question, I think the one thing we were kind of very nervous about at the start was whether number one, that the networks in the region were ready for a service like ours, and number two, to your point, whether the consumer had the device to consume a service like ours. And I think kind of very early on, we realized that those two things were not going to be our challenge. You know,
Okay.
we were really, you know, within 12 months of launching over the networks in the region, we were delivering 4K content to customers. So really that network issue, we were able to address kind of quite early on. We did some, you know, some work on compression, making sure we were delivering video to the customer in a way that, you know, didn't kill their bandwidth, didn't kill their consumption. So that's not been a challenge for us so much. And I think although there's, to your point, maybe not a Roku box available in the region today, there are a number of devices kind of available to customers that we see them consume on. So you have devices like Apple TV, which have become extremely popular. I think all of the major smart TV operators, as kind of I mentioned earlier, their products are really being adopted now. We see, you know, a huge amount of usage on our platform on the different smart TV brands. And then I think people like Android with their Android TV products. So, you know, you have a number of boxes at really competitive prices available with the Android TV platform for consumers to be able to watch products as well. So I think the kind of adoption of devices and the usage of those devices is really become well established in the region. And it's, you know, for us today, it's not one of those things that keep us up at night, if you like. You know, that's one of the things that kind of seems to be well supported. I think the thing that kind of did surprise us is the amount of consumption. I think early on people thought of SVOD products as something for the mobile. But I think what's actually happened with SVOD products is it's become a mainstream viewing product in the customer's home.
Mm.
So when I look at our consumption today, almost 70% of our consumption is on one type of big screen or another. You know, whether it's on the smart TV app, whether it's via the Sony PlayStation, but it's on like a big screen TV in the customer's home. And then
Fascinating.
to your second question in terms of technology, you know, yeah, there's all the buzzword about kind of machine learning and everything, but you know, I think to kind of put that into context, I think, you know, analytics is really kind of core to what we do as a company. You know, whether that be the analytics on what people are consuming, whether that be the analytics that goes behind building our recommendation engine. You know, when you have such a deep library of content, being able to customize that and get good assets in front of the right person becomes extremely key. You know, one of the biggest challenges is people knowing the breadth of content we have. So if we're able to refine that and actually show someone something that they're more likely to watch, building that recommendation technology has been kind of really, really important to us. And kind of also on the marketing side as well, you know, really understanding the channels that work, the creatives that work, being able to feed that data back into our acquisition programs to be able to optimize our acquisition cost is kind of a really key use for us of that technology and that machine learning. And I think beyond that, when we look at technology, you know, for us, it's really kind of about how we, you know, distribute our product. It's two things for us, I think, really. Number one is how we evolve our application experience so that we make it even more intuitive and even more easy for customers to use. And then secondly is about how we evolve the distribution of our video content. So the compression that we put in place, the video quality that we put in place. And, you know, we've really seen over the years with compression technology that you can deliver HDR quality video now at like, you know, 70% reduction in bandwidth to what we were doing 5 years ago. So really continuing to build on that kind of product quality and stability is really key part of our technology evolution, I think.
Yeah, fascinating. To continue on the technology, as you mentioned, the industry seems to be, like all technology, just growing at such a fast pace, and especially in streaming, with even the smart TVs are getting fancier. I think I heard 8K terms now are
Yeah,
being
exactly. Yeah.
mentioned. But yeah, but you mentioned SVODs, Danny, subscription video on demand, a few times, and it's brother or sister. Advertising video on demand are often mentioned as separate things. Like, do you think ad tech is coming more into all sorts of connected TV? Do you think that it's something that's inevitable? Will it come with live, with sports? And what's your view on it from a platform like Starzplay?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us today, and you know, never say never in the future, we kind of have not evolved into advertising as yet. We've seen ourselves as a subscription video on demand service. And I think, when we look at customer feedback, one of the things they kind of appreciate about our platform is the fact that we don't interrupt their programming with lots of adverts.
Absolutely.
So for us, that's kind of been a key product differentiator for us to now. But I think as the market evolves and and as you say, as the ad tech evolves, the use of non-intrusive ways maybe to bring sort of brands to our product and be able to advertise is something that we do consider, we do look at, we do kind of think about that opportunity going into the future and how maybe we can do that. And I mean, I think as well, when you look at some of the services in the region, the ad tech and the AVOD service is really at the core of their business model, and is really essential to how they're developing. And I think it's just a kind of, for me, a natural evolution. If more and more people are going from the channels and they're moving across to watching on the streaming services, it kind of makes sense for brands like NBC, to really evolve that ad tech and evolve where they're serving those eyeballs, those adverts into the future. So I think it's really just a natural evolution. But I think the difference with streaming is really kind of the data that is held about those customers. So number one, I think you can become, as an advertiser, a lot more targeted in the adverts that you're serving. But number two, I think as an advertiser, you can become a lot more confident in the inventory that you're buying. And I think that's also really, really key. I think in the past, kind of knowing the real numbers of where you're serving your ad has been maybe a challenge in the MENA region. Whereas today, through that ad tech and through that kind of changes in terms of the industry, people are able to now have a lot more confidence about the inventory they buy and how it performs for them.
Interesting. Last two questions, Danny. One is around another business trend that we've seen a lot in the last year is SPACs and mergers. Starzplay is a very strong brand, a lot of customers, regional presence. You must be an attractive acquisition for people who have their eye on the region. Has that kind of is that part of your plans? Have you looked at SPACs? Are you in conversations with anyone? I'm sure you won't tell me if you are, but I want to ask the question: what's the sort of roadmap for Starzplay? Where's your focus on?
Well, I mean, I think our focus is on growing the revenues and growing the business, to be quite honest. I think that's at the core of what we're trying to do as a company. I think if we can get that right, hopefully those opportunities will come to us down the line. But I think, really, I think our intention over the sort of mid to long term is to really, put ourselves in a position where we could IPO the company. I think that's kind of our vision and our goal for the future, and I think the best way that we can do that is by, number one, creating a profitable business where, we're kind of our cash we're generating independently, and we don't need funding, if you like, to run our business. And number two, that we can generate really good year-on-year revenue growth. So I think for us today, we kind of feel that the business has a lot of value to be generated yet. That maybe it's not the time yet that we need to do something like that we can realize more of the value that this company has to generate, and then maybe look at an IPO event sort of a little bit further down the line.
Interesting. And using that topic and that conversation for the question I always ask is how you see if the Middle East will emerge as a market. But in line of an IPO, we recently saw Angami, a streaming platform, although not like Starzplay, more so for music, lists on the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
But they didn't in the region. When you talk about IPO and your views on the region of if it will emerge, will we see kind of bigger annual GDP year-on-year growths in specific countries, and is there more potential for mature startups like Starzplay to list on the Tadawul or on the sort of SME boards in the UAE?
I think absolutely there is. I mean, when we look at the region, we're so excited about the potential of the region, and that's why we launched this company here. And I think MENA for startups is a really, you know, great place. You know, we're really proud to have the opportunity to build a startup in MENA. I think the growth, you know, unlike some markets where there's a lot of maturity hit in a lot of sectors, I think in MENA there's a lot of sectors where there's still a lot of growth to realize, you know, as the e-commerce market kind of grows. So number one, I think the opportunity for the growth in the region is really there. And I think if we can, you know, find those right set of circumstances to, you know, to do a local listing, for sure, for us, it's something that would definitely be of interest, you know.
Brilliant. Great note to finish on. It's been inspiring listening to you, Danny. It's so great to see how a prosperous Starzplay and how robust and how the company goes from strength to strength. So we'll follow your journey in the future. And thank you again for your time today.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers.
Thank you.